The Oakmont Country Club's Sunday brunch was a ritual. White tablecloths, fresh flowers, and the quiet clink of silverware against bone china created an atmosphere of studied elegance. My parents had been members for 23 years, long enough that they treated the staff by first name and knew which tables offered the best view of the 18th hole. I sat across from them, cutting into my eggs Benedict while Mom gestured toward the windows overlooking the manicured grounds. "The Hendersons are selling their estate," she said, dabbing her mouth with a linen napkin. 4 acres, original 1920s architecture, pool house, tennis court. Listed at $8.5 million. "Beautiful property," Dad agreed, sipping his mimosa. "Prime location too. Right on the golf course boundary." I nodded, keeping my attention on my plate. Mom's eyes fixed on me with that particular intensity that meant a lesson was coming. "You know, Sarah, your brother looked at properties in this neighborhood before he and Jennifer bought their place. He could have afforded something here, but they decided to invest smartly instead. Built equity gradually." "Smart approach," I said quietly. "Exactly." Mom leaned forward. "That's what I'm trying to tell you. You can't just jump into neighborhoods like Oakmont Hills. You work your way up. Start in a reasonable area, build wealth slowly, make intelligent choices." Dad set down his glass. "Your mother's right. You're what, 31 now? Still renting that apartment downtown? Sarah, you need to think about your future. Property ownership, real investments, not just whatever it is you do at that tech company." "I'm in product development," I said. Right. Dad's tone suggested he neither knew nor cared what that meant. "But let's be realistic. The median home price in Oakmont Hills is $3 million. The median. Starter homes, if you can even call them that. You'd need a down payment of at least $600,000, plus reserves, plus the income to support a mortgage that size. On a tech salary." He shook his head. "Not happening." Mom reached over and patted my hand, her expression sympathetic in a way that felt more condescending than comforting. "Honey, we're not trying to discourage you. We just want you to be realistic. This neighborhood isn't for everyone. The people here, the lifestyle, it takes a certain level of success to maintain." "I understand," I said. "Do you?" Mom's sympathy sharpened into something else. "Because sometimes I worry that you don't grasp how the world works. You see your brother's success, you see us here at Oakmont, and you think it's attainable for you. But Marcus went to Wharton. He's a partner at his firm. He made strategic career choices. While you bounced around tech startups," Dad added. "How many companies have you worked for in the past 10 years? 6. 7, I corrected softly. 7. Mom's voice carried across the dining room, causing a few heads to turn. She lowered it. 7 different companies. That's not career stability, Sarah. That's flailing." I took a sip of my coffee. It was imported Jamaican Blue Mountain, one of the club's signatures. I'd ordered it by the pound for the club's inventory when I'd acquired the property 18 months ago. The membership had no idea their exclusive coffee came from a bulk order negotiated by the club's new owner. "The point is," Dad continued, "you need to adjust your expectations. Look at condos in normal neighborhoods. Maybe take some financial planning courses. Learn about budgeting, saving, building toward realistic goals. Your father and I didn't get here overnight," Mom said. "We worked for decades to earn our membership here to afford our home. And even we couldn't touch something like the Henderson estate. That's for truly wealthy people. Old money," Dad clarified. "Or exceptionally successful new money. Not middle management tech workers." I cut another piece of my eggs Benedict. The hollandaise was perfectly lemony, exactly as I'd specified in the renovation of the club's kitchen last year. The chef had initially resisted the recipe change, but the members had noticed the improvement immediately. "Are you even listening?" Mom asked, irritation creeping into her voice. "I'm listening," I assured her. "Then why do you have that look on your face? That stubborn look you get when you think you know better than everyone else." "I don't think I know better," I said honestly. "I'm just enjoying brunch." Dad glanced at his watch, a Rolex he'd bought to celebrate his retirement. "We should wrap this up soon. I have a tea time at noon. Playing with Jim Henderson, actually. He's been telling me about the offers they're getting on the estate. Apparently there's a bidding war. Someone offered $9 million all cash." $9 million, Mom repeated, looking at me meaningfully. "All cash. That's the kind of buyer who belongs in Oakmont Hills. Marcus, my older brother, appeared at our table with his wife Jennifer. Both wore tennis whites, fresh from what I assumed was their morning doubles match. "Mom, Dad," Marcus said, kissing Mom's cheek before clapping Dad on the shoulder. "Sarah." He nodded at me, the greeting noticeably cooler. "Marcus." "Jennifer." Mom's entire demeanor brightened. "How was your game?" "Crushed the Williamsons," Jennifer said with a laugh, settling into an empty chair. 6-2, 6-1. "They're talking about arranging a rematch next week." "That's wonderful," Mom said warmly. "Sarah, you see? This is what we mean about fitting into a community. Marcus and Jennifer are active members here. Tennis, golf, the social events. They're integrated." Marcus ordered a Bloody Mary from a passing server. "What are we talking about?" "The Henderson estate," Dad said. "I was just explaining to Sarah that neighborhoods like this require a certain level of achievement." "Oh, the Henderson place?" Marcus leaned back in his chair. "Beautiful property. Way out of most people's league though. Jennifer and I could maybe swing something like that in another 10 years if my partnership shares keep appreciating." "See?" Mom turned to me. "Even Marcus, with all his success, sees that property as aspirational. You need to understand the ladder, Sarah. You can't skip rungs." Jennifer, who'd always been kind to me despite my family's dynamics, offered a gentle smile. "Have you thought about looking at properties, Sarah? There are some nice neighborhoods east of downtown. Good starter areas." "I haven't been looking actively," I said. "Well, you should," Marcus said. "You're not getting any younger. Real estate is how you build generational wealth. It's investment 101. A man in a dark suit approached our table. Robert Chin, the club's director of operations. He'd been working at Oakmont for 15 years, long enough to know every member by name and preference. He also happened to know exactly who owned the club, though he'd been sworn to absolute confidentiality. "Mr. and Mrs. Morrison," Robert said with his practiced professional smile. "Marcus, Jennifer. Good to see you all this morning." "Robert," Dad said jovially. "Excellent brunch as always. That chef you hired knows his way around a hollandaise." "I'm glad you're enjoying it, sir." Robert's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "I wonder if I might have a word with you and Mrs. Morrison? Privately." Mom's eyebrows rose. "Now, we're in the middle of family brunch. I apologize for the interruption, but it's rather time-sensitive. It concerns your membership status." The temperature at the table seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Our membership status?" Dad's joviality evaporated. "What about it? Our dues are paid through the end of the year. Perhaps we could discuss this in my office?" Robert suggested. "It will only take a few moments." "Anything you need to say can be said here," Mom declared, her lawyer instincts activating. "We're platinum members. We've been with this club for over 2 decades. What possible issue could there be with our status?" Robert glanced at me and I gave him the slightest nod. "Very well," he said. "I've been asked by the club's owner to discuss the terms of your continued membership." "The owner?" Dad looked confused. "You mean the board? I know everyone on the board. Jim Henderson is on the board, for God's sake. I'm playing golf with him in an hour." "No, sir. Not the board. The property owner." Robert's discomfort was visible now. "The club changed ownership 18 months ago. The new owner has certain policies regarding how members conduct themselves, particularly concerning how they treat other members and guests." Mom's face flushed. "Are you implying we've been rude? That's absurd. We've never." "It's specifically regarding your treatment of family members who are also club patrons," Robert interrupted gently. The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus looked between Robert and our parents, confusion written across his face. "What family members? We're all here." "Actually," I said quietly, setting down my fork, "I'm also a patron of the club." 4 pairs of eyes turned to me. "What are you talking about?" Mom asked. "You've come here as our guest a handful of times. That doesn't make you a patron." Robert cleared his throat. "Ms. Morrison has been a regular patron for the past 18 months. He comes quite frequently, actually. Usually on weekday mornings when it's less crowded." "Weekday mornings?" Dad's confusion deepened. "But you work. You're at that tech company." "I am at that tech company," I agreed. I'm the chief technology officer. I set my own schedule. Mom waved this away. That's beside the point. Robert, I still don't understand what this has to do with our membership. The issue, Robert said, his professional composure beginning to crack, is that the club's owner has become aware of how you speak about and to your daughter. Specifically, your comments this morning have been noted. Noted. Marcus finally spoke up. Who's noting conversations? Are we being surveilled? The owner was present, Robert said simply. I watched understanding dawn on Jennifer's face first. Her eyes widened and she turned to look at me with an expression somewhere between shock and amazement. Sarah, she whispered. Mom laughed, the sound sharp and dismissive. Don't be ridiculous. Sarah doesn't own this club. She rents an apartment. He works at a tech company. She owns Oakmont Country Club, Robert finished, and the surrounding 40-acre property. And as of 3 months ago, the Henderson estate. The world seemed to stop. Dad's face went through several colors before settling on an alarming shade of red. That's impossible. I assure you it's not, Robert said. Ms. Morrison acquired the club 18 months ago through Zenith Properties Holdings. The sale was finalized in April of last year. She's been the sole owner since then. Mom turned to me, her expression frozen somewhere between disbelief and rage. Sarah, tell him this is a mistake. It's not a mistake, I said calmly. I bought the club in April 2 years ago. The previous owner was looking to retire, and I'd been interested in the property for some time. The deal was straightforward. Marcus found his voice. You bought this country club? This club costs over $40 million. The property alone is worth. You're saying you had $40 million. The purchase price was $43 million, I corrected, though I negotiated it down from $47. The previous owner was motivated. Where the hell did you get $43 million? Dad demanded, his voice rising enough that nearby tables were starting to notice. From my company exits, I said. Those 7 different tech companies you mentioned? I didn't work for them, Dad. I founded them. All 7. I built them, grew them, and sold them to larger corporations. Mom shook her head repeatedly. No, you work in product development. You said. I said I'm in product development. I agreed. I develop products, build companies around them, and sell those companies when they reach optimal valuation. The first exit was $12 million. The second was $8 million. The third was $24 million. The fourth. Stop. Mom held up her hand. Just stop. This is insane. If you had that kind of money, why would you live in a rental apartment? Why would you dress like that? She gestured at my outfit, a simple sweater and jeans. Because I'm comfortable, I said. And because I learned early that telling you about my success only made things worse. Remember when I sold my first company? I was 24. I tried to tell you at Christmas and you said I was being inappropriately boastful, and that I needed to learn humility. The memory hung in the air. I could see Mom's face shift as she recalled it. So I stopped telling you, I continued. I let you believe whatever made you comfortable. That I was flailing, working dead-end jobs, going nowhere. It was easier than dealing with the resentment. Jennifer spoke up softly. The Henderson estate. You said she bought it. Robert nodded. 3 months ago. $9.2 million all cash. Ms. Morrison outbid 4 other buyers. $9.2 million, Dad repeated numbly. You paid. Sarah, that's one of the most expensive properties in Oakmont Hills. It's the 3rd most expensive, I corrected. The Whitmore mansion sold for $11 million last year, and the Prescott estate went for $10.5 million. But yes, the Henderson property is now mine. I'm renovating it currently. New kitchen, updated systems, restored original features. Should be finished by spring. Marcus had gone very quiet, his face unreadable. Mom found her lawyer voice, the one she used when she was trying to regain control of a situation. Even if this is true, and I'm not saying I believe it, that doesn't explain why Robert is here discussing our membership. What we say in private conversations is none of the club's business. It is when those conversations happen on club property and concern the club's owner, Robert said. Ms. Morrison has been very clear about one thing since she purchased Oakmont. She will not tolerate members disparaging other members, regardless of relationship. We weren't disparaging her, Dad protested. We were giving her advice. trying to help her understand. That I'll never own property in Oakmont Hills? I quoted his words back to him. That this neighborhood is too exclusive for me? That I need to adjust my expectations and look at condos in normal neighborhoods. The color drained from Dad's face. For the past 18 months, I continued, I've listened to these brunches. Every Sunday the same themes. My career instability. My lack of financial acumen. My unrealistic expectations. Marcus's superior choices. The importance of knowing one's place. Sarah, we were trying to be helpful, Mom said, but her voice lacked conviction. You were trying to feel superior, I said, and my calm delivery seemed to cut deeper than any anger could have. You needed me to be the failure so Marcus could be the success. It was easier to diminish me than to acknowledge that maybe, just maybe, I'd actually accomplished something. Marcus finally spoke, his voice tight. How much? All 7 companies combined. What were the total exits? 148 million, I said. Before taxes. Jennifer made a small sound. Marcus's Bloody Mary sat forgotten on the table. After taxes and investments, my current liquid net worth is around 93 million. That's separate from property holdings and equity stakes. I own Oakmont Country Club outright, the Henderson estate, 3 other properties in this neighborhood and a commercial building downtown. I also have significant stakes in 12 currently operating tech companies. Robert cleared his throat. Which brings us back to the membership situation. Ms. Morrison has requested that I inform you that your platinum membership is under review. Review. Mom's voice cracked slightly. On what grounds? On the grounds that the owner has discretion over membership, and the owner feels that your continued presence at the club may not align with the community standards she's working to maintain. Dad stood up abruptly. This is blackmail. You can't kick us out because of a family disagreement. Actually, I said, I can. The membership agreement you signed has a clause allowing ownership to revoke membership with 30 days notice for any reason. It's on page 47, section 12, subsection C. I can have Robert provide you with a copy if you'd like to review it. You're seriously going to kick your own parents out of their country club? Marcus asked, and I couldn't tell if his tone was incredulous or impressed. I'm going to revoke the memberships of people who spent 2 decades making me feel small, I corrected. The fact that those people are my parents is unfortunate, but it doesn't change the pattern of behavior. Mom's hands trembled slightly. Sarah, please. This club is. We've been members here for 23 years. Our entire social circle is here. Your father's golf buddies, my tennis partners, the connections that have sustained us through retirement. You can't just take that away. You mean the social circle that you constantly reminded me I could never be part of? I asked. The connections that were too exclusive for someone like me? That club. Robert shifted uncomfortably. If I may, there is a possibility for resolution. Ms. Morrison has indicated that memberships could be maintained under certain conditions. Mom grasped at this immediately. What conditions? We'll agree to whatever. 3 conditions, I said, holding up fingers. First, you acknowledge specifically and clearly what you've done. Not a vague apology, not a sorry if you felt hurt. A real acknowledgement of 20 years of systematic diminishment. The silence stretched. Second, I continued, you stop comparing me to Marcus. You stop holding him up as the standard of success that I've failed to meet. You recognize that people can succeed in different ways and that my path, while different from his, has been equally valid. Marcus looked down at his hands. And third, I finished, you start treating me like an adult whose choices you respect, even if you don't understand them. No more advice about my career, my housing, my financial decisions, or my life choices. You accept that I'm capable of managing my own affairs. Mom and Dad exchanged glances. And if we don't agree to these conditions? Dad asked quietly. Then your memberships will be terminated effective 30 days from today. You'll need to remove your belongings from your lockers, return your member cards, and settle any outstanding accounts. You'll also be removed from the club's directory and all club communications. This is extortion, Mom said, but the fight had gone out of her voice. This is consequences, I replied. For years you made me feel like I didn't belong. Like I wasn't good enough. Like I needed to lower my expectations and accept a smaller life. Now you're discovering that I belonged here more than you realized. I owned the ground you were standing on while you told me I'd never walk on it. Robert's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and looked relieved to have an escape. I'll give you some privacy to discuss this. Mr. and Mrs. Morrison, I'll need your decision by the end of the week. Marcus, Jennifer, your memberships are not affected by this situation. You're welcome to continue enjoying the club as always. As Robert walked away, Marcus turned to Jennifer. We should go. Let them talk. But Jennifer was looking at me with something like wonder. Sarah, I had no idea. All these years I thought, we all thought. I know what you thought, I said gently. It's okay. I let you think it. After they left, my parents sat in stunned silence. The brunch service continued around us, members laughing and chatting, unaware that the woman they'd been dismissing as the Morrison family disappointment was actually signing their paychecks. Finally, Dad spoke. Why didn't you tell us? I did tell you, I said. After the first exit. After the second. After the third. Each time you found a way to minimize it. Lucky timing. Good market conditions. Being in the right place at the right time. Never actual achievement. Never actual skill. So I stopped trying to make you see it. But to let us think you were struggling. Mom trailed off. I wasn't struggling. I was succeeding quietly. There's a difference. Dad looked at his watch again, but his earlier enthusiasm for golf had clearly evaporated. I need time to process this. You have until Friday, I said. That's when Robert needs your decision. And if we agree to your conditions? Mom asked. Everything goes back to normal? No, I said honestly. Everything goes forward differently. I'll maintain your memberships. You'll still be welcome at family gatherings. But the dynamic where you treat me as less than? That ends. Permanently. Mom's eyes filled with tears, and for the first time, I felt a flicker of something other than calm resolution. But I didn't let it change my stance. I need to go, I said, standing and placing my napkin on the table. I have a meeting with the contractors at the Henderson estate. We're discussing the timeline for the pool house renovation. The Henderson estate, Dad repeated as if testing the words. You actually own it. I actually own it, I confirmed. Along with this club and enough other property in Oakmont Hills that I'm now the neighborhood's third largest landowner. Right behind the Westmore family and the Pemberton Trust. I pulled out my wallet and placed several bills on the table. For brunch. I know you usually charge it to your membership, but I thought paying cash might feel more appropriate today. As I walked toward the exit, I heard Mom call my name. I turned. Sarah, she said, her voice small. Did you really come here every week just to listen to us? No, I said. I came here every week because I love the Jamaican Blue Mountain coffee and the eggs Benedict. The fact that you were here was just additional context. Robert met me in the lobby, his relief palpable now that he was away from the table. Ms. Morrison, I apologize for any discomfort that caused you. If you'd like, I can handle all future communications through email or phone. It's fine, Robert. It needed to happen. I paused. How many members know that I own the club? Besides the staff? None. We've been very discreet as you requested. Let's keep it that way for now. Though something tells me my parents might mention it to a few people. Robert's expression suggested he thought that was an understatement. As I drove away from Oakmont Country Club in my reasonable sedan, a 5-year-old Lexus I'd bought because it was comfortable and reliable, not because I couldn't afford better, I reflected on the morning. My phone buzzed with text. Marcus, we need to talk. Coffee this week. Jennifer, I'm processing. But I wanted you to know, I think what you did was brave. And then, surprisingly, from a number I didn't immediately recognize. Sarah, this is Jim Henderson. Robert Chin just told me the most interesting thing. I'd love to discuss my estate sale with you. Turns out I've been planning golf with your father while negotiating the sale of my home to his daughter. We should talk about the irony over drinks. I smiled and pulled into the driveway of the Henderson estate. My estate now. The contractor's trucks were already there, and I could see the architect waiting on the front steps with his portfolio. The property was everything I'd wanted when I'd first toured it 6 months ago. Classic architecture, modern bones, endless potential. The pool house alone was larger than the apartment my parents thought I was still renting. My phone rang. I let it go to voicemail. Then Dad called. Also voicemail. Then Marcus again. I silenced my phone and walked toward the architect, ready to discuss marble choices for the kitchen counters and whether we should restore or replace the original windows. Behind me, my phone continued to buzz with increasing urgency. The texts would be some combination of anger, confusion, and attempts at negotiation. My parents would spend the next few days cycling through denial, rage, and eventually, maybe, something approaching understanding. But that was their journey to take. Mine was already well underway, and it had been for years. While they'd been dismissing my choices and questioning my trajectory, I'd been quietly building an empire. While they'd been explaining what I could never achieve, I'd been achieving it. While they'd been telling me where I didn't belong, I'd been buying the very places they thought were beyond my reach. The architect greeted me with genuine warmth. "Ms. Morrison. Perfect timing. I've got the revised plans for the pool house, and I think you're going to love what we've done with the outdoor kitchen space." As we walked through the estate discussing tile choices and fixture upgrades, I felt the weight of the morning lifting. This was real. The property, the renovations, the choices I got to make about my own space. This was the life I'd built when no one was watching. Or rather, when everyone was watching but no one was seeing. My phone buzzed one more time. A text from Robert. "Your parents have requested an emergency meeting with me this afternoon. Should I accommodate?" I typed back, "Give them until Friday. They need time to sit with this. No extensions though. Decision by Friday at 5 p.m. Understood. Also, for what it's worth, the staff has nothing but positive things to say about you. You've been a good owner." I appreciated that more than I could express in a text. As the sun climbed higher over Oakmont hills, illuminating the neighborhood my parents had insisted was beyond my reach, I stood on my property, one of several in this exclusive enclave, and made decisions about my house, my renovations, my life. And somewhere across town in the country club I owned, my parents were learning a lesson that was 18 months overdue. Success doesn't always look the way you expect it to. Sometimes it looks like a quiet woman in a sweater and jeans, sipping coffee and letting you underestimate her while she signs the deed to your entire world. The architect was still talking about the pool house when my phone buzzed one final time. A text from Grandma. "Your mother just called me crying about country clubs and property. I told her I'd taught you better than to brag, and apparently I taught you so well that nobody knew you owned half the neighborhood. Well done, sweetheart. Lunch next week? Your treat, I assume, since you're apparently buying estates." I smiled and typed back, "Lunch sounds perfect. And yes, my treat. I'll even let you pick the restaurant. Any recommendations?" "Well, I own a few places downtown. But let's go somewhere neutral. Wouldn't want you thinking I'm being inappropriately boastful." Her response was immediate. "Your mother is an idiot. I'll meet you at Marcello's. Tuesday at noon." I looked up at the Henderson estate, my estate, standing proud against the morning sky, and felt something settle in my chest. Not vindication exactly. Not revenge, though it certainly had elements of that. Something quieter and more profound. The simple satisfaction of being exactly who I'd always been and finally letting the world, starting with my family, see it. The contractor's radio played soft jazz as we walked through the rooms, planning the future of a property my parents had used as evidence of my inadequacy just hours earlier. And somewhere in the Oakmont Country Club's dining room, my parents sat with cold coffee and the dawning realization that the child they'd dismissed owned the very ground they'd spent 2 decades treating as sacred. Friday would come soon enough. Until then, I had a pool house to renovate and a life to continue building, one underestimated achievement at a time.